Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded, except for Texas Winds, and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am Martha Brown, your host for today's activities. Today we are presenting Peggy Spear from the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. She's bringing us books, and we have no idea what that means. So Peggy, you're going to have to show us what you have today.
Right. Let me get this baby fired up.
Give me.
Bless you. Bless you. God bless you.
Ah, give me.
Bless you.
Ah.
All right, my friends. So it's probably not what you're thinking when I said books, huh?
Well, he's reading comics.
He's
That's-
reading
that's
comics, so it's like sort of fantasy done
Yeah,
in like a very
yeah.
tangential way.
Yes.
So we've hit on the first note. We see a little boy reading a comic. What else do we see?
Looks like a stick figure of a playground.
Yes, it's a very abstracted playground. Like nothing about it looks elaborated on at all.
Right.
What else? Yada, you were starting to say something.
No, just this, it looks like a swing set. And then to me, the building in the background looks like, a screen that has
Yeah.
been set up.
Yeah.
Yes, and dark sky.
Yeah, dark sky is what I see.
Yeah. What mood do you feel when you feel this?
Confused.
Confused?
Dark, yeah.
Why do you feel confused? Let's walk through that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, I see the child reading the comics, and then there's another person. Looks like it might be a child or some adult in
You're right,
children's
child.
clothing, but they're also reading.
Mhm.
And then there's an imaginary playground, so maybe they're something that they're reading causes them to think of a playground.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then the red windows in the back, I have no clue.
Does it feel welcoming? Mary Jane shaking her head no. Who else said no? Martha? Yeah. Does it feel cold?
It's a little cold, yeah.
Cold,
Yeah.
yeah.
It does.
Even though there's red in it, which is usually a happier or warmer color, the blue really kind of overpowers, I feel, that grayish blue.
Mhm.
And the brush strokes make it feel a little chaotic or a little uneasy, not chaotic, just a little uneasy. Almost as if it were kind of like an ocean where you're seeing these short brush strokes kind of butting up against each other. It's not that smooth concrete that you might expect to see when concrete's depicted.
I was
I think
just
it's kind of, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It seems to me that there should be grass if there's a playground. I'm sad that there's concrete.
Can you guess what city this is?
New York. Really?
Concrete jungle.
Go Yetta.
Yeah.
It, to me, almost reminds me of what you see in the picture is an image of the imagination of the comic.
Yeah.
It's like Dawn said.
Huh.
It's kind of like as they're reading it, this is forming in their brain.
I love that. I've never heard anyone talk about it that way. And I love that, kind of like they're escaping whatever that building is behind them and entering a fun environment.
And it's kind of like this is the building, it's starting and it's building it. It's not quite solid images yet. So it's just the beginnings of the imagination coming through.
So I think you guys are hitting on something that Ben Sean, we've looked at a bunch of Ben Sean's work before. We're going to look at another artwork of his next, but he's the one, if you can put on your memory caps, he did individual artworks tied to a poem about a life lived is a life full of memories, and those memories.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Looking at the ocean or seeing an animal in nature or looking at the stars. So very abstracted. So this is that same artist. You're hitting on the imagination part, but we're not seeing what their brains are creating. We're seeing them so entrenched in what they're reading as an escape from the reality that they're actually in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So this is in New York. This is actually tenement housing. So that coldness,
I buy
kind of
that.
uniformity of the home is meant to just be that. It's not welcoming. It's pretty flat. It's pretty cold. It doesn't quite feel like home.
It's just like it's a what'd she say, a facade?
Yes.
Facade,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no, sometimes when you might think of a cityscape of New York, you might picture flowers in the window or a cat in the window or curtains or things like that. Those things that make you feel at home. We're not seeing any of that. We're seeing the reflection of the dark sky on those windows, which kind of is, that feeling of dark skies, darkness, sadness. Not that tenement housing is always sad, but there is, an element of not hominess to that.
So reading the comic is a way to escape that monotony of life.
Absolutely.
I've always agreed with that. I've read a lot of comics.
Yeah, I mean, and what he's doing here is they're comics, not books. One, there's a funness to comics that books for children, women might gravitate more to. So there's that element of playfulness in childhood.
Yeah.
But a lot of times comics are political and social mirrors of what's happening at the time.
Oh yeah.
So while they are escaping what is their reality, they're not totally escaping their reality because there are probably some truths of what's happening in the outside world happening in these comics. This is right after the World War. The artist himself was an immigrant from Lithuania. So he is pulling back into his psyche of what his childhood might have been like coming to America as an immigrant. He probably didn't have many friends. He probably, their family was trying very hard to make money to support themselves. So you see that even though there are two kids, there's a sense of isolation. They're not engaging with each other.
Right.
Which I think those grays and those blues kind of reinforce that isolation.
That building, that part that y'all call it a building, doesn't look like a building to me. It looks like the windows are too close together.
Yeah. It's
To be a
more like
building.
one of those separation things that you put up in a room.
Yeah.
Like behind Martha.
A
Kind of like
lattice.
behind Martha, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it
it's
does
temporary.
have that flat quality to it. It really does. And so does the playground too. I mean, our depth perception is off. This little boy is just as tall as the building behind him, like Dusty pointed out. These swing set, they're like rings. That's not even a fun swing set. You know what I mean?
It looks like it would hurt.
Yeah, you're like Olympic status trying to do these swings and then falling on concrete. Could you imagine? So, and there's also no parents around.
Yeah.
It's this isolation from family, from friends, from everything. It's just their own little world.
Where did you say it was from?
The artist was from Lithuania, living in New York City.
Yeah, so this is from New York?
Yes, you were
Oh,
right.
it is from New York.
Yeah.
Whoopi Goldberg's
Could
tells,
it be, since he came from Lithuania, did he come from a village or a town that was really ruined in the war, and it's just
So
No.
he moved to the US in 1906. He was 8 years old. So,
okay.
that's his formative memories were happening a little earlier than 8, but there was no escaping these memories from his childhood of what it meant to be an immigrant in the US in tenement housing. I mean, and he's painting this, when was this painted? 46. So he's painting it 40 years later.
Mhm.
And there still is that freshness and immediacy to it that I'm sure most immigrant families felt, especially immigrants right after the World War.
Mhm.
So are they reading a newspaper or is that a book, do you think?
It looks like a newspaper based on the size and the tatteredness
Yeah.
of the paper, of the pages. So yeah, so he's here, he's re-examining his childhood, but in a way that really kind of fit emotions the world was probably going through at that same time. I mean, and like Don said, so many of us escape to private worlds, whether you're watching Netflix or reading a book, or, you know, that, you know, we have our ways to kind of remove ourselves from reality. And so we always joke at our house right now, we got to keep it light, got to keep it happy. We're not watching any of the dark shows or the killing shows. We're watching the stupid reality dating shows and things like that. You know, you just
We like
happy.
Good
we
for
like to
you,
watch
Peggy.
Wipeout on TBS.
Mhm.
So
It's
you
a-
can laugh.
Yeah,
So we can
So we can
laugh.
laugh. That people
Yeah.
get hurt while
laugh.
they're-
Yes, we need a break from some of the heaviness that is just going on around us. So, you know, everyone's got their drug of choice, so to speak. So,
Mhm.
all right, so we're gonna leave this playground of Ben Shaw's to this pay. It was a folio in something he was creating. And I do not speak Hebrew, so if any of you do, please correct me. I think it's called the Haggadah. It's the steps set forth for the order of the Passover Seder. And so there are traditionally 12 pages within this book, the Haggadah. I think I'm saying it wrong. I know I'm saying it wrong. And so
That's
this,
the
I'm
right
not sure.
word. Haggadah is the right word.
Oh, it is. Okay, it is good.
Yeah.
So this is one of the pages. He only ended up doing 11 of the 12 pages because when he went to his publisher to make sure they were on track to get this printed, the publisher told him, we're not going to print in color. And he said, well, I ain't doing this anymore. And so he stopped. He never finished the 12th folio, that at least that I could find. So we've got Hebrew words. Ben Shaw was Jewish. We've also looked at pictures of him when kids were at temple, or there was the Jewish town that the dad and the son were walking out of with the big stars of David on the gate. We've seen some of his nods to Judaism in past works of his. And so here, this is a text. I don't know which particular page this is, but he's doing it in a very traditional practice. Traditionally, the Haggadah was done with watercolor and decorated around the words. And he said he felt, or he noted that he felt like he was back in temple or Hebrew school growing up, where books, he would just kind of be doodling along the books that they would be learning from. He would be drawing things. So this is sort of a nod to, again, his things he might have done when he was a child. He did fall out of touch with Judaism just a little bit. His parents, as a part of coming back or coming to the United States, did not push Judaism on him the way the grandparents had pushed Judaism on their parents, his parents. So he, you know, he's had an interesting relationship with the religion. And here you can see this particular person's wearing a turban. This particular person's wearing a turban. He's referencing the Gerber Island off of in the Mediterranean, where it has one of the oldest communities of Jewish people in the world. And so he was really interested in that sect or that group of Jews to then be depicting them.
Is that all the actual words on the page? Do you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. And so there's like different stories that are recounted on each page. And I don't know which page. I could not find in our database, which I'm sure it's there and I just didn't see it, which particular story that it was telling. But the drawings around it speak to that story. And there's throughout the entire series of these, you can see there's a really big presence of hands. He was very interested in focusing on the hands of the people in his depictions.
Yeah, they look like they're all in worship position.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of a nod to it, you know, expressive hands, strong hands, and what those hands then are doing for God and for the religion.
I wonder if you've got the mountain scene in the back
Yeah.
and the big guy on the left is probably Moses, who's bringing this.
The calf. Oh, this guy.
Yeah, to the people. That's Moses.
Yeah, because I think it's Exodus is the book there.
Yeah, it's in Exodus.
Yeah, so it could be, and I don't know exactly which one, but on I want to say the Jewish Museum or is it Hebrew Jewish Museum in New York has all of the folios, and you can see them online, so you're able to kind of see it within context. And I think I delineate in English, not Hebrew, which one is which.
So
But I think, go ahead.
at the bottom of the page, there's a guy with a kind of a red turban on. It looks like he's either worshiping or getting ready to sacrifice a ox.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you can see it is some sort of cow or ox, because you can see the udders, you can see the
And his headgear is not really a turban that we call it. It's
This is
more of a correct me, Martha, if I'm wrong, more of a ceremonial priesthood covering.
The top
say that.
left, the guy in the
No,
top
the bottom,
left?
bottom, go ahead to the bottom.
I don't know what that is.
I think it's more of a priesthood.
It's from another country. It's
Yeah,
not from
this
Israel.
particular sect of
I don't know.
group of
I've never
Jews-
seen it in Israel.
Yeah, this is
Well,
very specific to the island off of in the Mediterranean. Gerber, I don't know if it's equivalent to a yarmulke. I cannot speak to that. I do not know. But a lot of men would wear turbans, I think, as part of their everyday life, not just for worship. So he was very interested in that group of that Jewish community. So that's what he's referencing with those turbans, which the term turban was used in the book that I was reading. So I don't know if that phrasing has changed over time to be more accurate or whatever.
That's quite impressive.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's very joyful. It feels very happy and expressive, beautiful.
Can I
And it's on a page of, I don't think I have the dimensions, but it's a larger piece. You can see that it's more rectangular than it is square.
Can I interject a little bit here?
Please.
Okay. The Haggadah is the book that we read at Passover, and it's the guide to what we're doing when we eat the bitter herbs and the eggs, and we have a shank bone, and we go through the story of liberation.
Yes.
We go through the plagues, and the short version is, we're Jews, they tried to kill us, we escaped, let's eat.
Yeah.
That's what a Haggadah is all about.
The Cliff Notes. Yeah, and so it's just from what I'm reading, Martha, everything you're saying is what he wanted to capture, and in a joyful way. This really is a time of celebration. And he wanted to capture the happiness that should be following this, even though there are, they overcame, is what he wanted to get across. So the expressive hands, the big hands, were a nod to that strength that got them through. So, and Martha is Jewish, or was raised Jewish or whatever. That I can think of other, there are other religions have important books that I'm sure if there was some sort of sacrament you might have received in those religions, you might have been gifted a beautiful book of prayers or a Bible, things like that. So religious text and in books think of the Book of Kells in Ireland. I mean, this is one of the oldest practices is decorating books with very religious important text. So the tradition continues in 1966. All right. So it really is. All right. So we're going to leave our old friend Ben and join Bernice. So any guess? Well, it doesn't say. Any guesses on what city we are again?
New York.
Chicago.
No, you're right. It's not New York. It's probably Chicago. It's New York.
Okay.
And this
Okay,
is,
so I was confused. Did you say it was New York?
yes.
Oh,
Yes, and so this is a photograph of a art bookstore specifically. Back when bookstores, I guess there were so many books, and different bookstores had different types of books. Now there's Amazon.
Party books.
So can you guys remember, I mean, in any where you grew up, do you remember going to bookstore, you know, these types of specialized bookstores and just kind of getting lost there, or was that not something you typically did?
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to bookstores, maybe that weren't so art book related, but you know, there was a bookstore in Denver that Myra and I went to. It was
The
huge.
tattered cover.
Yes.
Yes, that's huge. I don't know if it's still there. It probably
It
is.
is. It is.
But you know, you walk around there, it's like walking around a library.
Yeah, I forgot about that place, man. That is a cool bookstore, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you can see some of the, you know, you've got what I'm sure is she was really interested in capturing kind of the cultural urban landscape of what New York was. And so this is, while it is an art bookstore, this kind of is a lot of storefronts, you know, this keepers kind of waiting for business, displays in the window. There's a very familiar feel to this, especially, you know, tied to New York City. And you can see, you know, we've got Paul Gauguin, we've got Cuban art or Cubist artists, we've got Cézanne, we've got, you know, a bunch of different, what would be probably really nice coffee table books these days.
Yeah.
The window. And I don't know if any of you took art history. Art history books are like famously more expensive because of all the color prints that
Wow.
are in the books. Because you're not going to want to, you know, very few artworks want to be reproduced in black and white. While that happens, if you're going to get an art history book, especially before days of slides and, you know, now PowerPoints, a colored plate in a book was really cool and very important.
I remember the smell going into bookstores being a
Yeah.
child.
Mm.
It was
What,
just
is it a happy smell for you?
Oh, it was a good smell, yeah. And they sold more than books, you know, pens and pencils, and it was just an exciting store to go into because you could find so many different things.
Mhm.
I agree with you, Yetta. There's a fragrance about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a smell about opening a book for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's almost better than a new car smell.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I don't know about that one, Don.
Yeah, I don't agree with that one.
The
Yeah, and even
architecture,
old books.
the architecture of this store was very late 40s, early 50s.
Mhm.
This could have been, if you weren't seeing the high rise in the window from across the street, you could think that this was in any small town in America.
No, you're
It
totally
could have
right.
been in Dallas. Could have been in Dallas.
Yeah.
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 Or it could have been in a one-horse shop, town, you know, just
Yeah.
one of the shops
Yeah.
just there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's an
because we don't
Andy
know how tall the building is, Martha.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
across
I would
the
say-
street.
I
think-
would say that given what this bookstore sells, it would not be probably in a one-horse town because there wouldn't be enough people to buy expensive books.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd have to be someplace where art was appreciated.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's probably because that looks like a large door and the door's got a transom above it.
Yeah.
So it's probably 2-story.
And you
Would be
can
my
see
guess.
maybe, look at these books stacked
Yeah.
all the way
Oh, yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if it was just a one-story situation, dang, they are packing it full, you know?
They are.
They are. Yeah.
And you can see kind of maybe the ladder over this man.
Oh, that's true.
Mhm.
Ladder.
Yeah, it's just, there's something just very kind of nostalgic about it, looking at it now.
Yes.
Yeah, because they have disappeared, these stores.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're very few and far between. And if
Yeah.
you are going to a bookstore, oftentimes it's the Barnes and Noble, not the neighborhood bookstore.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Because the Barnes and Nobles and the other stores basically put the little bookstores out of business.
Mhm.
And now they don't have stores anymore. They're all internet stuff. Buy it on the
Mm.
internet.
Yeah.
The movie, The Shop Around the Corner with Tom
Yeah.
Hanks and Meg Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
good one.
No, that's called You've Got Mail.
you've
You've
got,
Got Mail.
thank you. Yes. And her
God, I
store was
love a
The
good
Shop
Tom
Around the
Hanks, Meg
Corner.
Ryan situation.
Yes, you've got mail. Bye, Steve.
Bye. We'll
Bye,
see you
Steve.
tomorrow.
next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Hi.
All right, we've got two more that aren't particularly wild, but just other ways that books often appear in artworks.
Oh,
Don't you just want to snuggle up on that? Whatever
I do.
shade. Something about this is so cozy and you can, I feel like Yetta said you can smell the books in a bookstore. Like I feel like you can smell, and there's a fireplace right here. So how cozy.
mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And there's even room for that gorgeous piece of art of the woman dancing.
Yeah. So this was, I couldn't find much about this artist, and the person who printed this artwork or this photograph was Bernice Abbott, interestingly enough. So the photographer here was the one that developed this picture here.
Mm.
So would you translate this as the interior of?
Of a dramatic actor's
Okay.
house on whatever the street.
Okay, thank you.
Paris. Yeah. And so I could not find who the actor was because everything I was finding was in French, and I do not speak French. I do not speak Hebrew, and I do not speak French. So I couldn't find some of the specifics of it, but it's in Paris. And so there's that, I don't know, just, I feel like you very rarely find apartments like this in the US the same way you do with that, maybe in New York and Boston, something like that, but these marble fireplaces and this kind of the cozy, look at that crown molding, my goodness.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Mhm. That's because
Lots
But
of
all
texture.
things that-
Books.
Great texture, yes.
Yeah. And this gallery wall that's created and all these really cool, to me, they're like estate sale finds, but they're probably things from their family or, found at antique stores. But there's just so much richness about this person. And so you often will see when people are taking interiors, there's a little bit of staging that happens. So some of what you're seeing isn't always probably true to what the house looks like. You're able to kind of pick up on the things that they are interested in. And here you're able, like we all pointed out.
It's awful crowded.
It's
Mhm.
Yeah.
it is crowded.
It'd be hard to get the books off of the shelf there.
Yeah.
You stand on the sofa.
That's right.
Yeah,
Because
you have to.
Stand on the sofa or really hang off the edge of that dresser and reach.
Yeah.
You got to know what you want.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing interiors. We often see a lot of books, as a nod to the lifestyle of whoever's apartment or home or whatever it is. And then we often see portraits where the sitter chooses to hold a book as a nod to their profession or their interest or whatever.
Do you know about this person?
So I did a little research, and the only Martha Lou Lemon I could find had Stolman at the end of her name. And she was an author. The Martha Lou Lemon Stolman was an author and wrote the book John Witherspoon, which I was not familiar with that book. But I couldn't find anything. I don't know if that's her married name, and that book was written, I think, in like 1956. So a lot of time could have happened between 41. She fell in love and whatever. But I don't know if it's the same person.
Yeah.
That's a great 40s hairdo.
Mhm.
So this picture resides in the Amon Carter Museum.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, no.
Yeah, everything I show you every week, unless I specify otherwise, is Amon Carter.
Awesome.
This is fabulous. She's very intelligent. She has a high forehead.
That's right.
Yay.
Right. Brainy.
Ooh, I like that.
Science, yes.
I'll
is-
take it.
But I'm sure, this portrait too, like some of the other pictures we looked at has that familiarity that I'm sure if when you've been at your grandmother's home or your mom's home, you know, whatever, there are pictures of people in your family that whether they're holding a book or an animal or a flower, they're, you know, those choices are often deliberate. Even when, you know, in oil painting, those choices are often deliberate as a way of depicting
What do you think?
the person. So if this is the author, then that makes sense. She was an avid reader and writer. It could even be her own book, but I'm not 100% sure it's the same Mary Lou or Martha Lou.
Mary
could you s-
Jane, what was Roger saying about what he thinks?
What did you say about this lady in the picture?
It looks like a little kind of a guy too.
Looks like a guy, he said.
Oh, no, she
Oh,
looks
okay.
feminine.
Mannish.
Mannish.
Mannish, maybe a little bit.
You asked me, I told you.
You
That's
bet.
right,
Thank you,
Roger.
Roger. Thank
That's
you,
what
Roger.
we wanted to hear that.
We want your input, yes.
Looks like a guy.
Mm.
An 18th century dandy.
She's manicured. She has a nice manicure.
She
Yes,
does,
yes,
freshly
she
lacquered.
does.
And she has it looks like it could be pretty shiny just with the glint of light catching part of her band or whatever it is. So,
What did you
all
say about
right,
her hand?
she has it's not her left hand unless
Okay.
that's switched over time.
Okay.
She does have a ring, she has jewelry on,
Oh, I see. Okay, I see.
and yeah, beautifully manicured nails. All right, my friends, those are our books. They're probably not what you were expecting when I said books, but there you have it.
Well,
Hey, they were great.
yeah.
Peggy, that was wonderful. Thank
Well, I'm
you.
glad y'all enjoyed it. Next week, we're back with Mardi Gras. Even though I know it's Ash Wednesday, we're going to go just 24 hours before in our minds to Mardi Gras. So we'll be looking at some images in our collection around that.
And we should wear our
Oh, wow.
beads, right?
Wear your
Oh,
beads,
yes.
wear your
wear your
mask,
beads.
get your helmet with the beer that goes right into your mouth. Just we are here for a party. All right, my friends, be good. Have a good week.
All
Thank you,
right.
Miss
Bye.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, Peggy. Thank you.
Wow,
Isn't
that's
she
good.
something else?
I
Yeah.
want one.
Well, let's just take a look at what's coming up. Here we are with Peggy and books, and we're going to scroll through the rest of the day. Kent Ellingson's coming at 11:30 if y'all are interested. And Emily's doing Nia at 1:30 if you're interested. And then tomorrow we get bingo.
Bingo.
Oh, I thought we were gonna do
Bingo.
Jeopardy.
We are going to do Jeopardy. Bingo is at 10:30 and 11:30, and Jeopardy is at 1:30.
Okay.
Okay.
So you can come to all of them if you want to. I would love it. But I know that's a lot of information, and I apologize for covering you up with all of it.
That's fine.